Hi BookTube! My name is Sarah and welcome to the Bookish Knitter. Today I am coming to you with my weekly reading update. So this is for week number 15 and it is April the 9th through the 15th. So today is the 16th. Happy Sunday everybody. Before I jump into the books that I finished this week, I just wanted to mention that today is the start of the page count reading challenge. So do pop over onto my Discord. I will double check the link below to make sure it works and share with us, how many pages you are committing to, or gonna try and read, I should say, and what books you're reading. Keep us updated day to day, how you're doing. I actually do plan on doing shorts here on the channel throughout the week to kind of update you guys as I go with my reading. I'm hoping to do it every day. We shall see if life gets in the way. What might happen is I might film them at night and then have it for the next day, essentially. So that's kind of my game plan. But anyway, yeah, so that starts today. So I hope that you all are going to participate and let me know how you are doing. I will leave a link to that video as well in the description box below in case you are unfamiliar with what the page count reading challenge is. This is the first month that I'm doing it. If it seems to be something that everybody, that a lot of people are interested in, I'm going to do it again next month as well. So yeah, just kind of a way to give us a week to try and read, push ourselves maybe just a little bit to try and hit a page count goal, which is always fun. And yes, I did get asked this question: audiobooks, graphic novels, comic books, all of those things do count. If you're reading it, as long as it's not the back of a cereal box, have to read a lot of cereal boxes, does count. So yeah, definitely check that out. So as usual, links in the description box below if you guys want to jump ahead to any of the reviews that I am going to do here. It was a 3-book week, you guys. Not super exciting. It's my own fault. And this is the problem when you're reading too many books at once. And I was talking about this yesterday when I did my TBR video for the week, that if you end up reading too many books at once, you don't finish stuff. So I'm going back down to just 2 books. I made the decision last night. I was getting frustrated because I thought I'm not going to get these done in the next few, and I'd like to finish. I haven't finished a book since last Monday. I've been reading every day and I've been reading a bunch, but I haven't finished anything since last Monday or Tuesday. So that for me is disappointing. So I think I need to cut down on the number of books I'm reading and, just kind of concentrate on maybe on 2. You know what? I kind of like the idea of having more than one, just like to list it, to leave it at 2 books, because the thing is that if you're reading one book and you're finding it's kind of not putting you into a slump, but you're not as interested, you do have something else to jump into. And you can jump into another book at any time, right? And I think that's what it was. I was just getting excited about all the books. And yeah, so I do have a very mini book haul. It's not really a book haul per se. It's a library haul. Again, I mentioned this yesterday, I think, that I went to the library on Friday to drop books off and I ended up picking up stuff. No idea when I'm getting to these. Not a clue. But I grabbed them anyway. I'm excited. We shall see where this goes. So again, let's jump into the 3 books that I finished this week. So the first book that I finished this week was Against the Rules by Francine Pascal. I gave this one 2.5 stars. Sweet Valley Twins, book number 9. This was whatever. To be honest, you guys. This was so the plot of this one, it's about a new girl in school whose older brother is a bit of a juvenile delinquent, and he's stolen, we're going back, guys, VCRs. If you don't know what a VCR is, Google it. It's how we used to watch movies. And way back in the day. And he got in trouble for that ever since his father walked out on the family, and yeah, he'd been to juvenile hall, what would you call it now? You know what I mean? Actually, they called it a reform school, I believe, in the book. And Sophie is his younger sister, and she's in middle school with the twins. And Jessica thinks she's horrible because her brother's horrible, and it must run in the family. Jessica being Jessica. Elizabeth makes friends with her. This girl's a very good writer, and she works for the school newspaper. And Elizabeth befriends her. But this is what really, so I gave this book 2.5 stars. I don't know if I mentioned that. This is what kind of really made me go, wait a minute, what? With this book is that their parents, Elizabeth and Jessica's parents, were like, no. If her brother's not a good person, then she's clearly not a good person, and we don't want her here at our house, and we don't want, really? The parents. I'm like, okay. I can understand kids being mean because kids are mean. That's what kids do. but for the adults to pass judgment on a 12-year-old girl based on what her older brother has done just seemed a little weird for me. So they kind of banned Elizabeth from seeing her. And then Elizabeth had promised already to throw her this birthday party because she was too poor to ever have a birthday party before, which, let's not get into that whole, like, her mother is, or they are Italian, excuse me. And this Italian stereotypes for this was written in the 80s. Like, I was reading this like it was an Italian stereotype from, like, the turn of the century. Like, it was, she didn't speak good English. The way they wrote her, the mother's English, like, the daughter was fine. But this book was a whole kind of messed up. But I am still reading them because they are so easy to get through. And, I mean, that's not the only one. But these are really throwback for me. And I'm, like, now as an adult reading them thinking, did I think this as a kid? And I have to wonder, you know what I mean? Like, has my thought process changed? Of course, the world has changed so much since these were written. A lot of the stuff that goes on in these books would never, ever pass, you know, anything nowadays, right? But yeah, so anyway, I read it. It was fine. It was fine. The next one that I finished was Against the Tide by Melody Carlson. I gave this one 3 stars. I was also disappointed in this one as well. So this is a love-inspired suspense novel, and I've been reading this one for a little while. I think I mentioned that I was having a bit of a hard time getting through this one, and the reason was because and I mentioned this last week, every single chapter ended on like a do-do-do, like, you know, the chapter ends and like she opens her car door and someone tries to kidnap her, and like every single chapter, her tires were slashed, or he fell over a railing into the river, or it always ended with something happening to them, and the entire story takes place over like 2 or 3 days. So that's a lot of stuff. So the plot of this book is that our main character, Megan, her father has literally passed away the day before. And he was found dead in his boat or floating in the water or something. He was an expert fisherman. You know, they couldn't understand how and why he died. They say it was natural causes, like he had a heart attack and then drowned. You know what I mean? Like fell the boat. But the boat was found destroyed. So it was kind of like she has a lot of questions, understandably. So her father ran the local newspaper, and Megan is also a reporter, but she lives in the big city of Seattle. So this takes place in the Pacific Northwest, in a small, you know, town, I think in Oregon, maybe. Anyway, so she comes back and she goes to the newspaper office to kind of like take a look around and whatever, and this guy attacks her, and that's how the book starts. And then Garrett is the male lead, and he kind of rescues her, and throughout the course of the book, he kind of comes to her rescue. And, you know, they're trying to find out. It was about a story that her father was reporting on. And then all these guys, something about the mob. Guys, I finished this book like a week ago. So I do apologize if the thoughts are not completely fresh in my mind. But, I mean, I didn't mind the story. Like, it was very action-packed. I mean, for a love-inspired suspense, they usually are. I did like the characters. I liked Megan and I liked Garrett. She kind of at times was like, I'm going to go and do this. I mean, what are you, dumb? For the last 8 chapters, someone has tried to kill you. Don't do it by yourself, kind of an idea, right? And the cops seem a little bit crooked, so that was a thing. But anyway, my big issue with this was the every chapter ending in a, oh my God, something has happened. Like, it got to be a little much. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen at the end of this chapter now? The other thing was the romance between Megan and Garrett. It was way too fast, and it also, based on the circumstances, I had a hard time with it. Her father literally died the day before the start of this book, and as I said, the book takes place over 3 days. So 4 days later, 4 days after the death of her father, which is a huge, I mean, she was very, very close to her dad. Her mother either passed away or left the family when she was very young, so she was raised by her father, and they had a great relationship. Fantastic relationship. She's falling for some guy. I just didn't buy it. I just didn't. You know what I mean? Like, as someone who lost their... Now, I'm married, right? But I lost my dad a few years ago. I can tell you, if I was single, romance would be the last thing I'd be thinking about less than a week after his death. And his unexplained death. Not just like he had, like, you know, he's been sick for a long time, and then passed away. But, like, he just suddenly, a very sudden death. You know what I mean? I just had a hard time with it. And I didn't know. It was a no from me. 3 stars though, because I've read Melody Carlson before and I do like her writing. And like I said, I did like the characters. The plot itself was interesting. I just wish that she had toned it down a bit on the, big to-do at the end of every chapter, as well as maybe stretched out the relationship a bit more, or had it be that maybe her father passed away, sometime earlier, and now she's kind of investigating do you know what I mean? There was another way that this could have been done to make the romance not more believable. Well, I want to say believable because, anything that you do after a major life change, you've got to be, like they say, you shouldn't make big decisions after a major life change, or make major life changes after something very big happens in your life, because you might be making that decision based on emotion as opposed to logic. I think you might know what I'm talking about. So anyway, that's it. Yeah, I read it. And the last book, I did end the week, so Tuesday or whatever day I finished this, it ended on a high note. And that was, the book I read was Beard Necessities by Reid. I gave this book 5 stars. This is the 7th and final book. Oh, makes me so sad. In the Winston Brothers series. This is Scarlett and Billy's story. I'm so happy. And this was narrated on audio by Chris Brinkley and Joy Nash, who always do a fabulous job. How Chris Nash does separate voices for all 7 brothers just amazes me. Like, without, in the book as you're reading, it's like, "Oh, so it was sunny today," Cletus said. "I thought it was supposed to be cloudy," said Billy. You get that at the end of every sentence, or whatever. When you're listening to this on audio, you don't have to hear him say that it's Cletus talking, because it's Cletus talking. You know what I mean? I loved it. So I cannot talk about this book very much, because, and I'm one who always, especially with contemporary romance, I'm like, you don't need to read them in order. Go ahead, read whatever book. You do need to read the Winston Brothers series in order. Now, I know a lot of people, I've talked to some people, they're like, oh, book 1 was not that great, and they never continued on. Book 1 is kind of like, it's a great start to the series, but it's a lot of fun. Let's put it that way. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit fun. The books get more serious as you go on. There's some events that happen within them. Reid tackles a lot of different topics and issues within these books. Again, I don't want to give away too much of this book that I just read, but Scarlett's story does deal quite a bit with abuse. So that's, and it's something that you've been reading about in all of the books. Like, you've been following kind of Scarlett's story throughout the course of the series, and then it ended with this one, right? But the books are so good. Cletus, which I think is book 3, his book is still my favorite, hands down. His book 3 and book 4, okay, so let's put it this way. Maybe you can skip around in the series a little bit, but you need to read book 3 and then book 4, because book 3 and book 4 follow the same timeline. So the events that are happening in one happen in the other, but you're seeing them from a different character's perspective, if that makes sense. But if you read book 4 first, you're going to be spoiled for what happens in book 3. Whereas if you read book 3 first, you kind of already know does that make sense? And if anything else, you need to read book 7 last. Out of everything, this book has to be read last, because you get so much, and I was sad at the end of this book, because she does a great job, or the author did a great job on the epilogue, and I really, really liked it. This series makes me so happy. It doesn't seem like it's the kind of series, like a contemporary series but it was, I think a lot of people look at this series and think, oh, that's silly or whatever. But again, it's not. There's some very serious topics that are dealt with in this book. I think Cletus's story, the woman, the female, the heroine in that story, Jennifer, she deals with a lot of mental abuse, I want to say, from her parents, especially her mother. And then there's another story. I don't think it's Dwayne's. I can't remember which brother it is. But he works in a mechanic shop, and the heroine in that story, Shelley, she is on the spectrum, and she sees a therapist. And that's the one thing I really like about the series, that therapy is talked about quite a bit. and not in a bad way. It's like, this is just something that you do. It's like saying, oh, I go to see my therapist. Like, oh, I go to see my dentist, which I think is fantastic. And you know, so yeah, this is, if you look at the covers of these books and you think, oh, they're silly, they're cheesy, whatever, they're not. There is some serious meat to these books, and I love them. And I took time over them. Like, I think I've read these over the past 4-ish years or so. But I'm actually thinking next year in 2024, I might do a reread of the entire series. Maybe start it in like March or something like that, like for my birthday month, and read one a month throughout 2024. So if anyone wants to join me on a reread, or in my case, a reread, but if it's maybe your first time reading them, and you know, I do recommend them on audio because Chris Brinkley, like I said, he does, did I say Chris Nash earlier? Chris Brinkley does all of the narration, all the male narration for all of the books. Joy Nash, I think, does 6 out of the 7. Shelley's book, I know for sure she does not do. There's somebody else who does Shelley's book, who does the voice of Shelley. So it goes back and forth between his narration to her narration. They're amazing. Absolutely freaking amazing. So, waxing poetic about my favorite series. One of my favorite series. So next up, what am I currently reading? So I actually do have 4 books on the go, but I'm only going to share with you guys 2 of them that I'm currently going to be working on. And I actually think if I buckle down today, it is Sunday, I've got nothing else to do today, I could probably get both of these done. So the first one that I am reading, and I am about, how far am I through this one? I'm almost 60% of the way through this one, and this is a Harlequin book, so I should have been done this long ago. This is Her Man of Honor by Terry Wilson. I am really enjoying this one. It's about a woman who's left at the altar, and her best man, her man of honor, he kind of comes and sees how she's doing right after the wedding, and, you know, one thing leads to another, and they end up spending the night together, and the story goes from there. I don't want to give too much more away than that. I'll talk about it next week. But I am really, really enjoying this one. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Everybody that I know that has read it has said it's been wonderful, and I am absolutely agreeing. And then the book that I'm currently reading / listening to on audio, depending on if I'm in the car or what have you, is another one I should be done by now, and that is Bombshell by Sarah MacLean. This is the first book in the Hell's Bells series, and this is kind of like about a group of vigilante ladies of the ton, if you will. So of course it takes place in Regency times. This takes place in a world that Sarah MacLean herself has created. This Regency world where you're meeting characters from other books of hers. I really like that she has put this kind of together. Some of the Bare Knuckle Bastards, which is another series by her that I've read, make appearances in these books. And so anyway, this is about, like I said, this kind of group of like ladies who are, I'm using the term vigilante. They're trying to right wrongs, essentially. And they're not doing it by killing anybody, which is good. I was a little bit concerned at first. I'm like, how far are they taking matters into their own hands? But essentially, like, for example, there's this one Viscount who is a jerk. And there's this, and he's older. He's like in his 40s. He's been married twice. Or something like that, and there is a young, I say the term young girl, but it's her first season in society, so she was maybe 16, 17, so yeah, that's a young girl. This guy's probably in his 40s, and her parents are kind of pushing her to marry him, even though he is not a nice person. I'll just be polite and say he's not a nice person. So Cicely, our female lead in this book, she gets him out in the gardens at this party, and drugs him. So he forgets, like it's almost like a drug to make you, like if you're having surgery, like something that's going to make you forget what's happening, right? And she does that, but then she writes on his forehead a word like, what did she write? I don't want to say loser because it wasn't loser, but cheat or something like that, like something that was not good on his forehead. He didn't know because he'd been drugged, so he didn't remember what happened. And then he goes back into the party, and of course now this girl's parents are like, well, I don't want him to marry her, because his reputation is kind of now really been flawed, even though he's a Viscount, you know what I mean? So that's how they're like righting these wrongs, like these women who are being taken advantage of by these very well-to-do, titled men, some oftentimes older and what have you. There's another one that they're dealing with where his 2 first wives mysteriously died. Mysteriously, I use air quotes. And there's another, and now he's married to a 3rd wife who's again much younger, and he treats her worse than you would treat a rat in your house. So yeah, I am really liking this because of that aspect of it. And that it is a romance between Cecily and a gentleman by the name of Caleb, who's actually an American. So I am listening to this one partially on audio, and I have to admit, Mary Jane Wells is doing the audio on this, and she does a great job with historical romances. However, she's not so great, to be honest, with the American accent of Caleb. So it's a whatever. Anyway, that's what I'm currently reading. So let me just very quickly grab my books I got out of the library and my crafty stuff. So I will be right back. Sorry about that, friends. So I should have grabbed these before I sat down, but whatever. So one of the library books I showed you yesterday when I was talking about, pardon me, I've got the hiccups, when I was talking about my weekly reading plans, and that was the Cream Puff Murder book by Joanne Fluke. It's right there on my little pile of currently reading, to be read, whatever. Another one that I picked up was Peanut Butter Panic by Amanda Flower. And I did already start this one. I am that far into it. I did put a post up, or I think I mentioned that I put the link up on my Instagram, or the what do you call it? Oh my goodness, the poll up on my Instagram, and you guys overwhelmingly, my Instagram people, picked this one. So I'm about 4 or 5 chapters into it, and I am enjoying it so far, but it's the book that I'm the least furthest through. So like I said, I want to finish Bombshell, and then I also want to finish after that the Lee Tobin McCain, and then I will pick up this one. So this is for Amish in April, so I did grab that one. I also grabbed another Amanda Flower book because I was looking at her books, and again, I have no idea when I'm getting to this one. This one, a very good chance, will probably get returned before I can read it, but we have Matchmaking Can Be Murder by Amanda Flower, which is the first book in an Amish Matchmaker series book. So these are actually a spin-off series of this one, which is the Amish Candy Shop series, and I am now past the point where these characters show up. So it's a woman who's an Amish matchmaker, and it's Cozy Mysteries. So I've heard great things about this. I really like Amanda Flower as an author, so I picked this one up again. If I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. And the last book, this one was like kind of in the Popular Picks new release, and I have to admit that the cover drew me in. And this is called The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook. This is a fantasy horror novel, not my usual jam, but guys, I kind of really wanted to read it. So it says, I'm just going to read this little bit in the beginning here. Upon the cliffs of a remote Scottish island stands a lighthouse that has weathered more than storms. Mysterious and terrible events have happened on this island. It started with a witch hunt. Now, centuries later, islanders are vanishing without explanation. Coincidence or curse? Liv Stay flees to the island with her 3 daughters in search of a home. She doesn't believe in witches or dark omens or hauntings, but within months her daughter Luna will be the only one of them left. 20 years later, Luna is drawn back to the place her family vanished. As the last sister left, it's up to her to find out the truth. But what really happened at the lighthouse all those years ago? Does that not sound amazing? Oh my gosh. This looks so good. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, really want to read it. I really, really want to read it. So I think this might have to get bumped to the top of the list from my library books. So I think going forward with the library, what I'm going to do is like take only 3 books out at a time, because then that gives me a book a week, a library book every week to read, instead of having like the 8 that I currently have out. Yeah, and they're due back in, a couple weeks. So anyway, I'd like to get to this one. So like that's kind of my goals, is the Peanut Butter Panic, so the ones I literally just took out. This one, and I'd also like to get to, of course, Among the Wicked by Linda Castillo. I think I'm going to return the other ones in case somebody else wants to borrow them, and then just work on those ones that I have. So yeah, so that's that. That's my book haul. I did not buy anything else this week, you guys. Even though I got some Amazon gift cards as something from work. Like it's this thing that we do at work that if you get whatever, you can get gift cards, and I always pick Amazon gift cards. I haven't bought any books yet, you guys. I have some stuff in my cart. Middle Grade May was announced yesterday by Storm over at Storm Reads, Lee at Dark Roots Creation, and Elizabeth from Lizzie Faye Loves Books. So I'm looking forward to participating in that, and I'm looking at maybe getting some books for middle grade May, because I'd like to participate in that. So yeah. But anyway, the only crafty stuff, I have really not done much cross stitch, you guys. I've been working on my sock, and I got pretty good. So that's where I was last week when I showed you guys, where that little stitch marker is, right there. So I got all this done. So not a ton, but I'm pretty pleased with it. So I'm more than halfway done, just halfway done the leg, I think, or about halfway done the leg. So yeah, so I'm hoping to get these ones done because I really, really want to cast on with the new yarn. I still have to finish my Christmas sock from 2 Christmases ago. I got one sock done. I need to finish the other one. So it's going to be like, should I start the new Christmas, or should I start the second Christmas sock when I'm done this pair of socks? And I really think I should. Or do I cast on new yarn? Because I got new yarn, which, sorry for reaching, I promised to show you guys a few weeks ago, and I never did. So this is a new, it's the Knit Picks yarn, which is fantastic. And it is, what is it? It's 437 yards, and it is a 75-25 superwash merino and nylon. So this is actually self-striping. And the new thing is it's called static, which means the colorways are based off of old television shows, right? So this one, my aunt and I both got, my aunt got a couple of skeins of this, and I got the one. And this is called John Boy, which is from the Waltons, of course. Now, I never watched the Waltons growing up, but it was like part of popular culture. And the reason this was a big deal is because, very quick short story, when I was a kid, my grandparents had a cottage, and as people do, as people of a certain age do, they used to like to have naps in the afternoon. Or at night as well. And when my grandfather's name was John, and we were all going like to lay down for my brother and I were really young. We call it Goodnight John Boy, which of course is from the Waltons, right? And it was, and that's the memory I have. Again, I've never seen the television show, but that's the memory. So I had to have this yarn because it was called John Boy. So thought it was so cute. And then for all of my Laura Ingalls Wilder fans out there, we have, what's this one called again? Prairie House. Little House on the Prairie. So yeah, so that's that. So I think what I'm going to do is finish the socks I'm knitting on, finish the second sock of my Christmas socks just to get those done, and then I think I'm going to cast on Prairie. So yeah, we shall see. That one might be a lot of fun. So yeah, or it will be a lot of fun. But like I said, you can't tell, but these are self-striping. So what that means is they stripe just like these socks. Not just like, but you're going to get definitive stripes. But it's kind of hard to tell, but the stripes are going to be like speckled, but you're still going to see distinct different stripes within the pattern. If you go on the Knit Picks website, you can see what they look like knit up, and it's very cool. They have a bunch of different ones too. There's one for the Love Boat. I can't remember the other ones, but they had some very cool ones. So very old retro television shows, which is kind of really fun. So anyway, guys, that is all that I have in today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know below, how did your reading week go? Do you guys have too many books on the go as well? I'm actually very happy to just cut it down to just a few, get these ones read, and then I can move on to something else. It's just the excitement of like getting books and wanting to start them all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway, guys, I will talk to you in my next video. Take care and happy reading, everybody. Bye.